Right, good morning everyone. Thanks for joining us for the Highfield Core Functional Skills Assessment Platform webinar. It's a mouthful. I'm Adam Glynn, one of the business development managers here at Highfield, and we've got Bethan Oakley, our corporate customer service manager, who's been instrumental in the structure and launch of Highfield Core. And we'll both be delivering the webinar today. I'll give you the brief introduction and cover some of the benefits of using Highfield Core, and Bethan will be demonstrating the system. Team members from other departments are on hand to assist with questions that you may ask through the webinar platform. We've got Don Binks, who will also bring some of those questions forward toward the end. My colleague Amy will be providing technical support in the background, but before we start, I'd like to draw your attention to the top right-hand side of your screen, where you'll be able to see a small control panel. From here, you'll be able to select audio options and type in your questions as the webinar progresses. We'll aim to answer all of the questions submitted at the end, before the end of the webinar or during the webinar. But anything that we don't pick up, we will address separately on email with you. Now, you'll also see that there's a facility to raise your hands. Please use this if you experience any technical issues during the webinar, such as you're unable to hear us or see the presentation slides. Amy will pick those up with you, but do make sure that you let us know that there are issues. Now, once we've finished the webinar today, and close that, we'll be presented with a short survey. It will pop up after a few seconds. It would be really handy if you'd complete that, as any feedback is incredibly important for Highfield to shape what we do in the future, and also to make sure that we're meeting your needs and expectations. So what we'll do, we'll dive straight into the webinar, and we'll go through the main benefits of using Highfield. So the aim of today is to give you an introduction to Highfield Core, so the new functional skills assessment platform. What we're doing to help you transition over to Highfield Core, so some of the key dates and some of the main things that you'll have to think about when that starts to happen. I think the most important thing today will be the demonstration of the mock assessment platform and the tutorial, but also incredibly important for you guys will be how to access the invigilator dashboard and accessing the assessment platform as well. And then what we'll do is we'll just cover some information about final assessment for legacy exams as well, so the key dates for the shutdown of the legacy assessments. Okay, right. Okay, so Highfield Core. The aim is really to build on the success of Highfield Works, which you may or may not have used already, which is our assessment platform dealing with multiple choice question assessed examinations, which currently hosts over 8,000 exams a month. We've built Highfield Core in a similar way, so that we can enhance the assessment experience of learners to make a learner-focused and user-friendly, basically a simple-to-use system that will really enhance the experience of a learner completing their functional skills assessment. It does have it provides a big improvement on the process for invigilators and candidates, and also those managing and booking examinations too, which also links into Highfield Central, so your online access to Highfield. It has been a long time coming. It's something that we've wanted to do for many years, and I know that Bethan is, I think, out of everyone in the business, probably the most excited person to see this launch. It does really show some significant improvements over the platform that we've been using to date. Highfield Core is launching and is pre-tested, so we are at the moment going through a period of testing the system and making sure that everything upon launch does work as it should, and we are at the moment having our customers, learning providers, select providers, test that out with live learners. So some of the benefits of using Highfield Core. So as I've already mentioned, it's a user-friendly assessment platform allowing candidates to navigate their exams easily. I think you will see during the demonstration the real big changes when you make a comparison to what you've been using to press with Highfield and what you will use then from the rollout date. So that's the 28th of May when you'll transition over. We'll cover that in a bit more detail soon, but you will see some significant changes in the way that operates. We have built it to include a very simple to use dashboard for the invigilator. Again, you're going to see this through the demonstration, and it's browser based too. So there are no downloads, no plugins. It will just purely run through your preferred browser. We do recommend that Google Chrome's used. It's fully integrated with Highfield Central, so everything is now managed in one place. So you will see that upon the release of Core and your approval to use it, there will be some slight changes in the way that things may look on Highfield Central, but you will be booking all of your assessments in one place now. Now, it does include a lockout feature for if a candidate leaves the screen, so a click off the actual assessment itself. Similar to what you've seen before. So if they, for example, open a new tab or maybe go to their desktop or open Spotify, whatever it might be, it will lock out the assessment as they progress. We've included or incorporated embedded user-friendly tools for English and Maths exams. Again, you're going to see all of that in a live demonstration that will include the calculator and easy to access text in English assessments as well. And what we've made sure also is that there's an in-depth system tutorial that demonstrates through video and also practice how to use Highfield Core, which is incredibly important for your learners as they approach their live functional skills exam. And that is accessible through the mock assessment side of the system. And the good news is that we will still continue to provide access to our remote invigilation service using Proctor Exam. So it works incredibly well with that. It's, you know, both systems are browser based, but there are now some really big benefits in that for running the exam, you no longer have to actually download any plugins to get Highfield Core working. So what we're going to do is I'll hand over to Bethan. Bethan's going to give you some information about transitioning to Core, and then we'll go through a demonstration. I'll keep an eye on questions that might be coming up in the background, and we'll answer those as you post them. But yeah, we'll hand over to Bethan, and yeah, I hope you're impressed.
Brilliant. So yeah, like Adam's just said, I think I am the most excited for this new system. It's been a long time coming. We've been working on it for a long time, and I do hope you really like it just from what you see today. So although there aren't any changes to the qualification content, we have had to create a new qualification on the system to ensure that we can manage a smooth transition to Highfield Core. So you will see now that the existing qualifications have got Surpass written in brackets at the end of the qualification title, so it is easy to differentiate which one you were using. So you can continue to use Surpass for exams up to and including the 28th of May this year, but we would suggest that you start the transition to Highfield Core as soon as possible. So any new learners or those who haven't yet taken any exams should take their first exams on Highfield Core for continuity. So we'll have a gradual transition to Highfield Core, and your account manager will be in touch with you to discuss it further. And if you wish to start the ball rolling sooner, you can contact them now and they'll start running through the process with you. So if you've got any pre-registrations on the system, these will need to be swapped over to the new qualification. So just let your account manager know when you'll no longer be using them, and they can get all of those swapped over for you. Any remaining registrations will be changed over week commencing the 31st of May, so you don't need to worry about doing anything with them. And any existing candidates who will need to be registered against the new qualification to complete their assessments on Highfield Core, again, will be managed with your account manager support. So if you've got learners who've done maybe one exam on Surpass and won't be doing any exams until after the 28th of May, they will need to be moved over to the new qualification, but we'll go through all of that with you. So now we'll move on to the demonstration. So the mock assessments and the tutorial are available from now. I think some of you might have already seen it as well. I know I've spoken to some of you about it. So the website you need to go to is highfieldcore.com. So I'll just load it up now and go through it with you. So from here, you will see that this is the main website where a candidate would go to sit their exam, which I'll talk about later on, where the invigilator would access the dashboard, and then you can access the mock exams and the tutorial. So if we look at the mock exams first, so in the drop down, you will see at the moment that there are speaking, listening and communication ones in there. If you ignore those for now, you'll see those disappear in the coming weeks. So we'll have a look at Maths Level 2 for an example. So you select the qualification and click Start Exam. So it will load up a information page. So this is similar to what will be seen for the learner when they do their actual exam. It gives them all the information of what they're going to see. So for example, it's got a non-calculator test for the first section, how much time they've got for that and how many marks are available. So it's got all of the information, including the details about a 10-minute break in between two sections. It does also let them know that some questions will require scrolling and how they can use the scroll bar to access the bottom of the page. And so anything that they normally would have seen on Surpass. At the bottom for the mock exam, there are just two boxes, so they can click whether to accept, and they're saying that they know it's a mock exam and it's not a real exam, so they can't do it by accident, or they can just exit the page. In a real exam, there's also a box in the middle, which you'll see later, that is for them to change their name if need be. So if we click Start Exam, and it will load at the page. So in a live exam, they will also have the benefit of the exam timer in the top left-hand side, and in the top right-hand side, they'll have a progress bar as they go through the exam as well. So the questions I'll flick through. I'll not embarrass myself by trying to do some maths in front of you all, but I'll flick through just so you can see roughly how the system works. So they've got the text box for any of their working out. They can, if they need to, make it bold. This will obviously come more in handy for English. They can italicize, they can move their cursor over if they need to, or move it back to the other side. They can also write squared numbers and whatnot there. And then there is a very clear answer box for them to type in their answer. So as we progress through, if they're not sure on a question, they can flag the question. And when they move on, you'll see that it is still showing as flagged at the top. So they can move to the next question either by clicking next or by clicking on the particular question number. And if they're wanting to go back to the previous question, they just click previous. So it is very user friendly. It's also got clearly how many marks are available for each question. So I'll just move through just so you can see some of the question types. So this is an example of one that needs scrolling, and it is very clear again as to where the answer box is. So in a live exam, when they get to the middle of so once they finish the first section, the non-calculator paper, they're able to click End Exam. And it does give them a very clear message that they are finishing that exam for that section, and they cannot then access after. And upon moving to the next section in a live exam, they'll be taken to a screen that counts them down for their 10-minute break before they can move on to the next section. If they wish to move on early, they absolutely can. It's just up to them. So if we click next on this one, it will take us through to the calculator paper. So again, on here, it's just a page that requires scrolling, which is really user-friendly for them. And the calculator will be down and quite visible for them. It's normally on most questions on the right-hand side, so it should always be in a similar place. So again, I'll not embarrass myself too much, but the method calculator itself will store any of the working out. So just as an example there, and if they want to clear it, they can click to clear. And again, they can flag any questions moving through. And I'll just click through it slowly, just so again, you can see some of the question types on the page. So for this question, for example, there's a drag and drop. So it is just as simple as dragging these into the correct order. And I'll just keep flicking through for you. Like I said, these are available now on highfieldcore.com. So you can go on and have a good play around and spend a little bit of time on there. So it is obviously really good for learners as well, so they can understand the assessment system, especially if they have done an exam on Surpass, so they'll be able to get familiar with any differences on that. So again, they can flag questions and they can go back to any question that they've flagged if they need to. So when they get to the last question on the mock exam, they do have a button available for to leave the mock exam. As with the current mocks we've got available for Surpass, the answers aren't stored. So if you do wish to mark them, the learner could either send screenshots of their answers, or they can keep the mock on the page for you to go back through. If you do keep clicking on previous, you can go back to the non-calculator part as well. It does let you on the mock only. Obviously on a live exam, they cannot return to that section. So if we leave this mock exam, and it'll take you back to the home page of Highfield Core. So now I'll just have a quick look at a reading one for you so you can see the differences with the English. And start mock exam again. So again, it gives them the information about what exam they're going to do, what they need to do for multiple choice questions, for example. So if they read that, it will tell them what they can and can't do in the exam. And then start exam. And here you'll see that the text box does just load up for them, so they don't need to click anything to open it up. So I know with Surpass at the moment, if they're using SecureClient, they still need to click on something to open it. And if they're using Surpass Viewer, which has recently taken over from the old Flash version, they do need to click something to then open it, and it opens into a separate window, which I know some learners have struggled with. So with this, they don't need to flick between any different pages. It is just on the page for them. So again, as with the maths, they can flag the questions and they can unflag it if they're happy with the answer. And they can flick through. So again, if I flick to question 15, I don't want you just watching me flick through all the questions, you'll see that on this particular question, you need to compare text A to text B. So they are both available for them, they just need to scroll to see text B as well. So again, they don't need to flick between two different tabs or three different tabs in the event that they were looking at two texts. They are just available for them with the answer box on the right hand side. So they should find that that is really user friendly for them and it is easy for them to use. So again, if we leave that mock exam, you can go on there and have a play around with them, spend as much time as you need. And again, I would always recommend pointing the learners in the direction of them. There are 2 mock exams available for each exam, and the system will select one at random. So if we went in to do another one, it would likely pick the other paper. So now I'll show you as well that we do have a really useful tutorial for learners to look through that is really in depth for them, particularly for the maths, where there are some useful tools for them during the exam. So if I click on tutorial, you can choose between English reading, English writing and maths. The English is fairly straightforward. It's still good for them to have a look at it, but for the maths, there is a little bit more in depth to it. So they will get the chance to do the tutorial before they start their live exam, but it's always worth them having a little play around before their exam. So if they can spend half an hour to an hour or whatever on the tutorial, it just means they're really comfortable with how that system works when they come to do the live exam. So if we have a look at the maths one. And on here, you can see that they've got 3 different options as to what they can look at. So if we look at the calculator, it just lets them have a little play around with the calculator to see how it works ahead of the exam. So that is fairly straightforward. If we look at the chart page, this one is really handy. So they can scroll down and they can pick which chart they need to do. So this is anything that could come up during the exam. So if they have a little play around with all of them, and they can obviously then be ready for it when they access their exam. So if we look at a bar chart and scroll down, so it shows them here that they can add the data and add a label. So for example, if we were to add blue and a number and then click add, it will add their bar. Further down, there are some really useful demonstrational videos. So if we were to click show, and it will just show them how to use that. Scroll down a little bit more so you can see it all. So this is showing them how to add labels to their graph, so how to add the title and how to add the axes, and then to add the data. And then it will take them back to the beginning of that particular video. There's then more specific videos on specific areas, so how they would go about adding data. So again, it shows them everything that they need to know. And if we just have a little look at deleting data, again, you'll get a bit more of an example. So down here, they just click the cross on the right-hand side. So that is a brief look. I'll not go through it too much with you. Like I said, it is all available. You can go and have a look at it anytime you like. And like I said, we do recommend that learners spend a lot of time on there ahead of their exam. If we just load up the scatter, for example, and I'll just show you, again, there are the demonstrational videos down the bottom. So I'll just show how that's working. So if I just scroll back up to the top, another thing you can do, there's a little cog in the right-hand corner. If they click on that, they can change the theme of the page if they need to. So for example, contrast or dark. They can do that during their exam as well. So I will just show you quickly on English, but again, like I said earlier, there's not a great deal to it. So if you have a look at an English writing, again, they can, if they needed to, for example, design a leaflet, they can have a little play around with how they would do that, how they can move their cursor, how they can make the text central, etc. So they can have a little play around with that ahead of the exam. So it's on highfieldcore.com. And this is the page they would go to. So again, anybody can access it. So send the link out to your learners, let them have a play around with the mock exams and the tutorial ahead of their exam. So I'll just go back to the PowerPoint and we'll continue with that. So in terms of booking the exams, if you're familiar with Highfield Works, then you'll see that it does work in a very similar way. So you book the exams in the usual way on Highfield Central, but this time upon booking, you'll receive a confirmation email. Now this email will include an exam code that will be required for the invigilator to access the invigilator dashboard. So the exam code is in the email there on the right-hand side, and the exam code is also stored on the exam page on Highfield Central. So once you've entered that code, so you'd click on, once you've got the code, you would go to the highfieldcore.com link that is contained within that email. From this page, select I want to invigilate an exam. And then you'll be asked to enter your name, job role, and the exam code. And again, that exam code is found in the email or on the Highfield Central page as well. And once this information has been entered, you just need to click the login button. So once you've logged in, you will be taken to this invigilator dashboard. So from here, you can add additional time, confirm the ID, check the status of a learner, set the candidate or candidates as ready, and check any notifications as well. So we'll go through those in a little bit of further detail over the next few slides. And with the icons next to the learner name, if you hover over them, it tells you what each button does as well, so you don't need to guess. So if we first look at adding additional time, so if you do need to add additional time, you click on the Add Reasonable Adjustment button, which is next to the specific learner. The icon for that is the clock that's got a plus sign next to it. So to add the time, you'll bring up, once you've clicked it, it will bring up an information box, and this tells you information on how much time you're able to add, where you can find the reasonable adjustment policy, and just how it works. So for example, with maths, because there are 2 sections, it tells you how that will be divided between the exams. And to add the time, you scroll down to the bottom. You can enter the number of minutes either by using the buttons, the purple buttons there, so +1 or +10, or you can free type the number of minutes you need to add and then click submit. Additional time can be added before the exam or during the exam. And once you've submitted that, you'll see it in your notification panel, which is on the left-hand side of the dashboard. So it shows there that the additional time has been granted, so you can check. So you can also confirm the learner ID. So this must be done before the learner can start their exam. Once you've physically checked the ID, if you click on the confirm identification icon, so this is the one that looks like an ID badge, and then you can select which form of ID. So whether it's ID by signature, photographic or third-party verification. Click on the relevant box and then click save. So when you confirm the ID, you can set the learner as ready to start their exam. So for individual learners, you can do it by using the tick icon, or if you've got multiple learners on the exam, there is a button on the top right-hand side that says set all ready. So you can click them all at once rather than doing it individual. Once you've clicked it, the candidates can then start their exam. You'll be able to monitor the status of the exams throughout, and you can see any main events in the notification panel. So for example, if a learner has clicked off the screen and locked themselves out, it will show on there. And then you can obviously go and you just need to pop in the exam code to re-access. So in terms of learners accessing Highfield Core, once you add a learner to your exam on Highfield Central, you'll receive a confirmation email, and that will include the PIN that the candidate will need to access it. This must only be shared with the candidate when the invigilator is present, and that will ensure that the exam conditions are adhered to. So again, to access, the candidate would need to go to highfieldcore.com, and that's the same page that you've seen earlier in the demonstration. And it will be provided with an email confirmation once they're added to the exam. So that link, will be provided in that email confirmation. So from here, they would click on the top option. So I'm a candidate wishing to sit an exam, and then they will be asked for the PIN. Once they enter that PIN, that's when they would be able to start their exam. So as I mentioned earlier in the demonstration, before the candidate starts their exam, they can choose to view that tutorial. We would recommend that they do view it before they start. But again, as I mentioned earlier, we would recommend that they've had a little bit of time to access it beforehand. So once the learner has chosen to move ahead with the exam and start, they are provided with some information about the exam that we saw earlier. So this is for the actual exam. And here they are given the 3 different options. So they can accept to say that they are the person stated above. So they can check that their name is correct and spelled in the correct way, and that they will answer the questions in the assessment without any assistance or guidance. If their name is spelled incorrectly, they can click to change their name, and it will then bring up a box where they can type it in correctly and then continue with their exam. Or if they're not the correct person, they can click exit, and then they would just need to check that the PIN they've entered is correct. During their exam, they will be able to see how much time they have left, see their progress and flag questions to come back to later. If they do click off the page, as I mentioned earlier, they will be locked out and you will just need to enter a reason and the exam code to allow them back into the exam. If they're being remotely invigilated by Highfield, they won't be locked out as they'll need to or potentially need to go back to the proctor page to speak with their invigilator. We can see their screen though, so it doesn't lock them out. So if a learner does attempt to end their exam without answering all of the questions, or if they have got any questions flagged, they'll be brought up with a screen that shows this message, just asking them if they'd like to revisit anything before they go back. So they can go back to any of the questions by clicking on the particular question in the unanswered questions column, or if it's a flagged question, or they can click the back to exam button in the bottom right hand side, and that will take them back through to their exam. If they are still happy to end the exam, then they can click end exam. So if they've answered all of the questions or they're happy to complete with the flagged or unanswered questions, they can just click the end exam button. They will be prompted to confirm that they definitely do want to end the exam, and once they've done so, they can leave the page. As soon as they've clicked end exam, they cannot re-access the exam. So if we just have a chat about the resits, so resits can be taken on Highfield Core, even if the original exam was taken on Surpass. However, we will need to book those in manually for you, just to make sure that they are taking a different paper code. So to request a resit, you'll just need to email your account manager with the exam and the learner information, and they will be able to book it for you. And as always, we'll require about 5 working days notice should be provided for them. For RI resits, you'll just need to send your request through as normal to the RI bookings inbox, but just specify that that exam is a resit, and we can make sure that that's booked correctly for you. And any exams that are done firstly on Highfield Core, when you're booking a resit, it will automatically pick a different paper code, so you don't need to worry about anything with that. For remote invigilation, there is a new booking form now, which requires you to specify which assessment platform you'd like the learner booking for. So it's exactly the same form, but there's now a box where you can enter Highfield Core or Surpass, just to make it clear which one they are taking the assessment on. And if you've sent any booking requests in for May, or have already got exams booked in for May that you would like to be swapped over to Core, please send out the details to RI Bookings. Your account manager should be getting in touch with you shortly if they haven't already, with a template for you to send through so you can easily show which learners should be doing that. So it doesn't have any effect on paper-based assessments. The exams are not changing, so any existing stock you've got can still be used. New learners will need to be registered against the new qualification moving forward, so do that from today onwards. And pre-registrations will need to be swapped over. So as I mentioned earlier on, your account manager will be swapping over any pre-registrations. So if we've got any remaining from week commencing the 31st of May, they'll all be swapped over at that point. But if you just let them know right away when you're ready to swap them over, and they can move them now, so you don't need to wait. And to touch on the legacy qualifications, so legacy qualifications will be withdrawn on the 31st of July this year. We have sent out a number of qualifications about it, so hopefully it's not coming as a shock to you. The final assessment date for legacy exams is the 30th of June, and all paper-based and on-screen exams must be returned or uploaded to Highfield by this date. If candidates do need to complete any resits, they will need to be returned or uploaded no later than the 14th of July. And the certification end date for all legacy qualifications will be the 31st of July 2021. Your account manager will be getting in touch with you again if they haven't already over the coming days, just to make you aware of any legacy learners that you've got available on the system for you to then confirm whether they will be completing or whether they've withdrawn, or if they need to do the reformed qualification. If they are doing reformed, they'd need to do all of the exams again. So I know during that there were a lot of dates flying around there, so we have got a handy timeline for you. So you can see the key dates for it. So we'll leave this on the screen while we have a look at any questions that you've sent throughout the webinar.
Great stuff. So thanks, Bethany. I'm just monitoring the questions in the background, and we're lucky enough to have several team members to answer them because there have been many questions. What we'll do, we'll bring Don Binks into the call in just a second, because I know that Don was highlighting the ones that he felt would be appropriate to share with everyone. There are a couple that I've noted, and Bethan, you might want to help me out with some answers. So some of the basic ones have been: will paper-based exams still be available?
Yes, they definitely will. Again, booked in exactly the same manner.
Great stuff. And something that we've obviously done with Highfield Core is made the decision to take assessments to this digital platform of assessments to online only. So offline assessments won't be available through Core. However, if the learner were to start their exam and for some reason their internet connection were to drop, would a learner still be able to continue with their exam?
Yes, they can, yeah. So there is a message that comes up asking them to refresh sometimes, which will pull the data through. And if it does drop, it will go into offline mode, and then they can upload the answers at the end.
Great stuff. And there have been a few questions about online mocks, and I know that you've answered it within the webinar, but there are, we said, two per functional skill. There are 2 mock papers available.
Yeah.
So learners, when it loads up and a learner starts a mock, it will randomly select the mock that will be presented to them. But of course, over a period of time, we will be adding to the mock papers that are available. One of the comments or questions that we had was also about whether or not it kind of randomizes the questions that are in the papers, in the mocks as they appear. And the answer to that is it does not, because of the way that functional skills assessments are structured, and the way that you would be essentially looking to mark any mocks that have been completed for your learners. So you've got the weighting against each question that's asked in the mock to consider. I think a key point is also with this is just a brief overview to give you an indication of how things are going to work. Our user guides and support documentation that no doubt you are familiar with at the moment has or is being updated, so I'm sure the ink's still wet on some of them, but they will be made available to you before you start to use Highfield Core, and that will include instructions on how the system works, how the booking system is going to work as well for this, which is not really any different to how you'd have used Highfield Central in the past. Too many Highfield, but we will make sure that you do have that. Interestingly as well, with it being browser based, there are a few people asking what browsers are good to go with this, and I think we generally advise use of Chrome, don't we? But I did note that Phil had picked up that Microsoft Edge is supported. And
yeah, it does still work on that.
Yeah, is it right that if there are other browsers that would be used, whether it be at a place at the employer where their apprentice is working, or whether it's on a laptop provided by the learning provider, the tutor, it would be best to test that and test it using the mock system?
Yes, definitely, yeah. It's all on the same website, so worst case scenario, that might just need to be whitelisted, but once that's done, it should then allow access to everything.
I think the point around whitelisting is a really interesting one too, because of the way that assessments are happening, particularly linked to apprenticeships, and with what we've been through over the last 13, 14 months with lockdown and people either working from home or having to do assessments in the workplace, and the introduction of then the remote invigilation service, not having to download or install any content for the assessment platform to work, is going to be hugely beneficial to those that use the remote invigilation service too. When it comes to whitelisting of Highfield Core, it's just simply going to be a web address, isn't it, that needs to make sure is accessible.
Yeah, as far as I understand it, yeah.
Yeah, so that's information. I know there have been a few people that have asked, the several employer providers using our functional skills services, and if you are working closely with or you would expect learners to use Highfield Core for either remote invigilation or employer invigilated assessments, do get them to test the mock service, the mock system, and if that throws up any issues, then of course we can give you what you need then to whitelist access to Highfield Core. Again, lots of kind of repeat questions that have come through. So will online mocks be automatically marked? The answer is unfortunately no. With the way that functional skills assessments are marked and graded, yeah, I mean it does involve or require an individual, so one of our markers, to do that. So the mocks will not be marked automatically. However, we do, for each of our functional skills mock papers, provide the marking scheme and guidance that you can use. And another thing that is in the pipeline for us, which we hope will launch before the full rollout, would be the option for you to, or when learners completed the online mock, for them to pull a report including their responses to the mock papers that they complete. So that's something that I've picked up this morning with colleagues, and that is going to hopefully be there before Core goes live, and well, the full transition takes place, so 28th of May. And there was also a query, or something that we wanted to check in on, and that would be availability of feedback reports post-assessment. So we do have the option to provide feedback reports if your assessment is happening before early June. It is likely that what we'll have to do, and we've done in the past for a lot of providers, it's likely that we'll have to provide post-assessment feedback reports for individual learners through your account manager. We do have access to them. However, we're hoping that the next release that we have on Highfield Core, so the development release, the improvements that we're making, which is due to go on the 3rd of June, we're hoping that that's going to be made available to centres, and obviously it's something that we will let you know as soon as it's available. It's just one of those things that we want to make sure is right, is reporting the correct information that you'll need for you to kind of have a post-match analysis of an assessment, and then hopefully improve the likelihood, if you have had a fail, of a successful reset. We've already gone through exam booking. I think a couple of people have asked about exam bookings, whether that's going to be the same. Yes, it will, absolutely. And what else was there? If we have learners registered on Surpass, linked functional skills, can they be transferred? Okay, so yes, any learners that are currently, as Bethan said, that have a booked assessment on Surpass can be moved over to using Highfield Core. Now, I know that Nikki and Philip and the team have been doing a grand job answering some of the questions, but Dom, if you're there, have there been any that I maybe haven't brought up that you feel that we'd need to discuss?
Hi, Adam. Thanks. There's a couple of themes that are coming through. We are getting loads of questions, so apologies if you haven't got an individual answer to your question, but we will try and get that to you either during or after the webinar. There's a couple of questions along the theme of mocks. I think you've covered this, Ad, but about mocks not being marked. So that's really clear. So the design of the mock system is so that learners can practice using the assessment software. We've told a few customers on the webinar that we still do offer PDF mock exams if you want to review learners' work in detail, but the mock system at the moment doesn't store any responses that learner completes. And then the other question related to mocks, which is coming through quite a lot, is about access and registration. So just want to again make the point that the mock system is completely open access. So you can share that now with your learners if you want to. You can share it with definitely share it with your tutors. They can jump on, they can do the tutorial, they can access the mock papers themselves. It's absolutely open access, and it doesn't require any advanced registrations or notifications to us. And then one other point, Adam, that I just wanted to take out as a theme from the questions is just about some of the technicalities on the layout. So there are some features in Highfield Core allowing you to change the color, etc., so that you can, if you've got learners with visual difficulties that need to have that facility. There is no specific Zoom facility in Core, although Core is browser based, and there's a Zoom facility in browsers, so you can simply zoom in if you need to make the text bigger for reasons of helping the learner. Obviously, the resolution then does change, so you need to be wary of that and wary of the layout of the questions, the answer boxes, the calculator if you're in the maths exam, the reading pane for the text for the reading element of the exam as well. So you just need to be aware of that. But the Zoom facility, there's no Zoom facility specifically in Core, but it's browser based and can be used in the browser. As I said, there's a few specifics that are coming in. Oh, just a question, Beth, and you might be able to help with this about. So I think we covered the question about booking, and the booking process remaining the same, and the remote invigilation service staying the same. And there's a couple of questions about timescale for results. I don't know if you could make a comment on that, Bethan.
Yeah, so the timescale for results is exactly the same as it was before, so it will be within 10 working days of the learner taking their exam. I've seen a couple of things about the notice ahead of the exam, so we do need 5 working days notice. So either book it on the exam, on the system 5 working days ahead of the exam, or send it to our RI bookings inbox if it's remote invigilation. Just flicking through as well, I've seen a question about any guidance packs. So we've got a user guide that is done and ready. It's just being a little bit revamped by our design team at the moment, so that'll be out shortly. And the handbook as well that is on the website now will be updated to include information on Highfield Core rather than Surpass.
I think it's obvious to say that upon full transfer from 28th of May, all of what you will need to make head and a tail, or for you to understand how this is going to work, and for you to appropriately advise your admin team, MIS team, exams department, however you're structured, all of that support resource will be available to you through the download area within Highfield Central. It's also worth leaning on if you have any specific questions that are not answered in the documentation that we provide. It's also worth leaning on the contacts that you have within Highfield. So either your account manager or business development manager, or other team members that you have conversation with. Get in touch, ask those questions. We're all getting up to speed, as you will be, on how Core will work and the functionality that sits within it. So pose those questions, drop them an email, give them a call, and I've got no doubt you'll be able to get a speedy answer on what to expect. Bethan, you mentioned about providers being in a position to be able to request moving learners over to Highfield Core, and that's going to be something that they'll do through their account manager. Is that something that can happen just from now then?
Yes, it can, yes. I think a lot of you might have been contacted either last week or starting now this week with some further information. So if you haven't yet been contacted and you want to move over now, definitely drop your account manager an email and we can definitely get that process moving for you. Exams, our first live exams are taking place next week. So whenever you're ready, we are essentially.
Great stuff. Okay. Anything, Dom? Anything else from you that you wanted to pick up? Anything that's come in over the last couple of minutes?
No, there's a couple of specifics that we've been answering as you've been speaking, I hope. So there's no other theme questions, I think, that we need to pick up in the webinar. Thanks, Adam.
Perfect. Okay, great stuff. Right. Okay. So there are probably another couple of minutes for you to get your questions, and as always, we will try and answer them after the webinar. But really, just to pass on our sincere thanks for sitting in with us for the last hour to have a look at Highfield Core. Please do, upon receipt of the PowerPoint slides, or if you've taken some screenshots, or if you're having a look at the emails that have been sent through, please do get on there and have a look at the mock assessment system. And any feedback that you may have in what you experienced through that mock platform, please put that through your account manager. It will be listened to and taken on board. We're probably version 30 or 40, however many it is, of the system now. The team are working really hard, but obviously further improvements, if highlighted and relevant, are potentially to be made, and we certainly are adding to the certain parts of the system to after launch or at around launch. So yeah, thank you for attending today's webinar. Again, a copy of the slides will be emailed out to all attendees by my colleague Amy within the next week. We do plan to share a recording of this webinar on our YouTube channel, the Highfield Group. That will again go on out in the next couple of weeks. It is worth noting, if you have colleagues that haven't managed to jump on today that you feel would like to sit on our live webinar, we are repeating this on Thursday next week, which is available on the website. So I think that's the 13th. So do have a look on the events section on Highfield qualifications.com. When you go on to, or if you do follow the link to the YouTube channel, do subscribe. There's a lot of really useful content on there. Turn on the alerts to receive the notifications when a new video has been uploaded. It is worth, given that we're talking functional skills, me just saying that we do have or have delivered several webinars over the last 12 or 18 months that specifically focus on functional skills or reform functional skills. Lots of hints and tips. There were a couple of live webinars that we did with questions coming in from learning providers that I think you will find incredibly useful to watch. So do have a hunt round on the YouTube channel for appropriate content. Now, as I've mentioned, there will be a short survey for you to complete that will pop up after the webinar. Again, feedback that you can provide post delivery of this kind of thing is incredibly important. So please do spend a little bit of time to complete the information on there. If you are new to Highfield or are looking to move to Highfield for functional skills qualifications, and really do fancy the look of Highfield Core, just pop a note on there just saying that you'd like additional contact after the webinar, and one of our business development team will be in touch, talk you through your options and pricing and what this would mean to you as a learning provider. So thank you again for your time today. I hope it's been insightful and useful and it's got you as excited as we are. If there's anything that you would like to ask, throw those comments in now, but what we're going to do is bring the webinar to an end, and we hope to see you all hear from you very soon.